250 multipliers. Do they consider that content while making enemies harder? They're pointing it takes 24 hours to craft. Not hard to tankier. That's all. It's tankier. That's it, bro. What?
Alright, class. Steel Path is coming out, but I cannot say that I'm completely happy with how they're treating this mode and what they are saying about it. And let's go over why that is exactly. Starting with number 1. DE says that this isn't supposed to be associated with Endgame. Why not? When you are boosting resources, you are in Endgame territory. What do you do with those resources? You use them to build weapons that you forma to kill higher level enemies. That is a part of Endgame, because you are enhancing your state. When you get Steel Essence, what will you use them on? If you are trying to become stronger, Kuva for your ribbons, relic packs for prime weapons, and warframes depending on your state in the game. That is Endgame. So it's foolish not to associate, but at the same time, I don't blame DE because the community has a convoluted idea of what Endgame is exactly. Next is boosting health is only one piece of the pie. 25% of that pie, well, that works on regular enemies. And 100% of that pie works on bosses. Because bosses have a varied moveset compared to regular enemies. Just being a sponge does not enhance the experience unless you are using abilities or performing combos because you are wrecking house out there, man. You ain't got no time for no noobs. And that's where the power fantasy lies. But, just like everything else, there needs to be special units in this hard mode that boost the experience. Like a Lech Krill unit, you know, that spawns in and organizes the Grineer units around it into a firing squad or a formation to attack. Just like in MapleStory, a mini boss or an actual boss will buff the smaller monsters around them. This is what Xmas are on a minuscule scale. They aren't really special, just regular enemies with fuzzy effects on them. They need more than just a fuzzy red glow and an AoE attack. Give them personality, or their own look and moveset. Third, some bosses will show how terrible they are, hiding behind invincibility instead of health, the lack of telegraphed attacks to make the fights more interesting, the overuse of mechanics, and the lack of mission structure before you reach them. As far as I know, in any game, before I reached any sort of boss, I had to go through enemies and stage mechanics prior. In Warframe, there is no such thing, although I can sorta understand, because, well, you are just farming for Warframe parts. But this is the Steel Path. A mode for invested players. The fact that there isn't any sort of mission objective or a dungeon-like feel to the boss node is precisely why clans and group activities are dying. And so many feel that there is no content for them after a certain point in the game. The lack of telegraphed attacks is another problem that adds to the fact that fights aren't engaging. Either enemies move so damn fast that they poof off your screen immediately, aka Tal Regger, or they shoot at you with no wind-up animation, aka Kuvalich's, Eidolon's, Profit Taker, Exploiter, or practically every boss in Warframe. Right? Monster Hunter World is a prime example of sponges done right. None of the enemies in there require invincibility because of their movement and attacks that interrupts the player's chain of thought, such as, if I don't dodge this, I am dead. Should I dodge or should I keep shooting is a question that DE needs to start answering. It's a shame because Warframe has one of the best movement systems ever created and they squander it on bullshit. Now, the overuse of mechanics is a double-edged sword because it can be both good and bad. On the one hand, it's for the boss to stay alive against the player's onslaught and provide a bit of a different experience, but too many, well, will more than likely kill the experience and annoy the player. A prime example of this is Steel Path Vayhek. Let's take what I said about that there is no mission objective before the boss and fix Vayhek's overall boss fight. It starts as an exterminate, and you cut through the enemy units until you get to the last enemy and he drops a console and a pass that allows you to get deeper into Vayhek's base. When you reach inside, you have to do a mobile defense, but instead of defending the console, you have to defend the player as they go through multiple hacking sequences. If they fail, well, the enemies that spawn in, they get a boost to their level. When that's completed, you fight a little mini boss, maybe like a tusk thumper, without the legs just being its weak point. That will be a sort of like a mechanic where if you defeat the legs, it will slow down the thumper and you could do damage to its main body. So the main body isn't invincible. Of course it reduces damage and you have to destroy all the legs to, you know, deplete the damage reduction, right? But it doesn't mean that you can't simply attack the body and it will die. It's just gonna reduce the damage. But besides that, when you defeat the thumper, you then get to the final boss, which is Vayhek's drone form. He laughs and does his thing and he flies deeper into the forest and you find him and the battle begins. Grineer are everywhere and he's boosting their damage and doing telegraphed attacks, releasing one magnetic pulse like the Eidolons after you break their limb, right? You have to dodge that using parkour. Now in Vayhek's normal battle, he opens up and he gives you opportunities ever so often to damage him. But here, he's open all the time until a certain threshold is met. When he reaches that threshold, he locks up and the Goose Strike 3 spawns in with buffed health, extra attacks, and maybe they could even throw the Grineer onto you for extra damage or to knock you over. Right? When they are defeated, Vayhek opens back up and stays open until he runs away again until the next encounter. This is how you fix boss fights in Warframe and keep them engaging, so you don't have players twiddling their thumbs until it's over, right? This is how you make sustainable content and group activities. That's it. That's all. And last, rewards. Kuva, good. Relic packs, good. If they are unhinged by daily limits on how many you can buy.
Super sexy!
If there's not a cap on how many steel essences you can keep.
Super sassy sexy!
Because that means whenever you buy, whenever a new frame comes out, you can just simply buy all the relic packs you would need to get all the relics that just came out. And that's awesome. But outside of that, outside of those rewards, there's nothing else in the Steel Path. There's boosted affinity and resources, which is always good. but that's not really. Most of your veterans, most of your top-notch players, they don't care about all that. But what would they care about? Permanent stats to specific warframes used in missions. Take what I said about the boss node being upgraded to like a full-fledged missions, and put challenges based on the amount of people or the tasks completed in the mission, and give rewards of stats based on those. Right? You completed with 4 people, you get plus 100 health to the warframe used in that mission. Do it solo, you get plus 5% power strength permanent to the warframe used in that mission. Same thing with weapons. They want to bring in their favorite weapon, they can increase its stats. Plus 10% damage to your rifle. Right? Shotgun, bow, whatever. When you start playing with health and start allowing the player to gain more health, you can start fixing the problem with scaling and damage to the player. Right? You can start fixing those issues. But that's all I can really say about that for right now. The Steel Path, outside of that, I'm looking forward to actually playing it. I think it's gonna be a pretty fun experience, but just those are just some things I can't overlook when it comes to it, because I still think that they're squandering this game mode and what it could be. But yeah, that's it. Alright, I'll catch you guys later. Peace.